There's a black material you can make for under $2, and once it's in your soil, it can keep growing food for hundreds, even thousands of years. Not one season, not one harvest, but generation after generation. And the reason most people have never heard of it has nothing to do with whether it works. It has everything to do with what happens when it does. Because right now, the system you've been taught to trust depends on one simple idea, that your soil will always need more. More fertilizer, more treatment, more products, every season, every year, forever. But what if that idea isn't true? What if the problem was never your soil, but the system designed to keep it dependent? Because if you've ever tried to grow anything, you've seen it. Plants start strong, then slow down. The soil gets harder, less alive. You add fertilizer. Things improve, then fade again. So you add more, different brands, stronger formulas. And slowly, without noticing, you get trapped in a cycle. Feed the soil, watch it decline, repeat. And it feels normal. Like that's just how growing works. But it didn't always work this way. Long before modern agriculture, long before chemical fertilizers, there were entire civilizations growing food in places that should have been impossible. And one of those places was the Amazon rainforest. Now here's what makes that strange. Amazon soil by nature is almost useless for farming. It's thin, acidic, low in nutrients. If you clear land and plant crops, the soil is exhausted in just a few years. That's what scientists believed for a long time, until they discovered something that didn't make sense. Deep in the Amazon, they found patches of dark, rich soil, completely different from the red clay around it. This soil was black, fertile, alive. Crops grew easily in it, and the most shocking part, it was still working after more than 1,000 years. This wasn't natural soil. It was created, and it had a name, Terra Preta, dark earth. Archaeologists realized this soil wasn't an accident. It was built by ancient people, layer by layer, over time. And once it was created, it didn't fade. It didn't degrade like normal soil. It improved, it spread. It kept feeding life long after the people who made it were gone. And that's where this changes everything. Because at the center of this soil was something incredibly simple. Charred organic material, what we now call biochar. Burnt wood, burnt plant matter, something most people would throw away. But when it's created the right way, it becomes something completely different. And this is where the science gets interesting. When you burn organic material in open air, it turns to ash. The carbon disappears into the air. But when you heat it slowly with very little oxygen, something else happens. The material doesn't burn away, it transforms. It becomes a stable form of carbon with a structure full of tiny pores, millions of microscopic spaces. And those spaces change everything. Because soil isn't just dirt, it's a living system, full of bacteria, fungi, microorganisms that control how plants grow. And these organisms need a place to live. Normal soil doesn't hold them well. They get washed away, dried out, destroyed. But biochar acts like a permanent home, a shelter, a network of tiny chambers where life can grow safely. Water stays longer, nutrients stay available, microbes multiply. And once that system is built, it doesn't collapse easily. It becomes self-sustaining. That's why Terra Preta lasted for centuries. It wasn't feeding the soil once. It was building the system that feeds it forever. And here's the part no one talks about. The global fertilizer industry makes hundreds of billions every year, and it depends on repeat use. Soil that needs constant input, constant correction. Because a one-time solution doesn't create customers, but a system that needs feeding every season does. A material that reduces dependency, that improves soil permanently, doesn't fit into that model. It can't be packaged the same way. It can't be sold again and again, so it stays on the edge, known by researchers, used by small communities, but rarely explained to the average person. Not hidden completely, just never emphasized. But once you see it, you start to understand this isn't just a product, it's a system shift. And creating it is simpler than most people expect. You take dry organic material, wood scraps, plant waste, even nutshells. You heat it in a low oxygen environment, not burning it into ash, but slowly charring it. Once it's fully blackened, you stop the process by cooling it quickly. What you're left with is raw biochar. But this part matters. You don't use it immediately, because raw biochar is empty. It needs to be charged. You mix it with compost, or soak it in nutrient-rich liquid like compost tea. Let it sit for a few days. This fills those tiny pores with life and nutrients. Then you mix it into your soil. Just once, that's it. Over time, you'll notice the difference. Soil becomes softer, holds water better, plants grow stronger. And instead of declining, it improves, season after season. But this isn't magic. And it's important to understand the limits. If your soil is extremely damaged, the change won't be instant. It takes time for the ecosystem to rebuild. And if you apply raw biochar without charging it, it can temporarily reduce nutrients. And this is not about rushing. It's about building something that lasts. A gardener in South America tested this on a piece of land that had been overused for years. Crops had stopped growing properly. Fertilizers weren't working anymore. After adding biochar mixed with compost, the first season showed small improvement. But by the second season, the soil had changed completely. Better moisture, stronger plants, higher yield. And by the third season, no additional fertilizer was needed. The soil was doing the work on its own. And that's the difference most people never realize. This isn't about boosting growth for a few weeks. It's about rebuilding the foundation that makes growth possible. There was a time when people understood this, when soil wasn't treated like something to fix again and again, but something to build once and protect. That knowledge didn't disappear. It just became less visible, replaced by faster, more profitable solutions. And the truth is, your soil was never meant to depend on anything forever. It was meant to become self-sustaining, stable, alive, and capable of supporting life long after you're gone. A $2 material, a few simple steps, and a system that can last longer than anything you can buy in a store. That's not just a gardening trick. That's a completely different way of thinking. And once you understand it, you can't go back to seeing soil the same way again. Now you know.